gotta be kidding me." The words left my lips before I could stop them, a low, incredulous hiss that cut through the sterile air of Lucas Thorne's office. I was staring at a PowerPoint slide titled Strategic Reorganization, and on it my name, Morgan Hayes, was listed as a client associate. My promotion, the promotion I had dedicated 5 years of my life to earning, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, my title, Senior Account Manager, was gone, replaced by something so far below my pay grade, it felt like a deliberate insult. Lucas, the newly appointed VP of our division, didn't even flinch. He just leaned back in his leather chair, a smirk playing on his lips, as if he were watching a particularly satisfying play unfold. "I assure you, Morgan, this is a very serious matter. It's about realignment. We're optimizing our structure to better serve our clients." I glanced over at Sarah, my supposed colleague and close friend, who was seated beside me. Her eyes were fixed on the table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She wouldn't meet my gaze, and a cold dread began to pool in my stomach. This wasn't just a simple demotion. This was a setup. I could feel it in the air, a thick, suffocating tension. "Optimizing," I repeated, my voice rising a little, despite my best efforts to remain calm. "I've single-handedly brought in 1/4 of this company's revenue for the past 3 years. I've nurtured every major account we have. How is stripping me of my position and my authority an optimization?" "Your compensation will be adjusted accordingly," Lucas said, completely ignoring my point. He slid a piece of paper across the polished mahogany table. My eyes scanned the numbers. A 40% pay cut. I gripped the arms of my chair so hard my fingers ached. A surge of white-hot anger, a fury I hadn't felt in years, flared up inside me. This wasn't just a realignment. This was a coordinated attack. "You'll also be reporting to Brittany from now on?" He added a final knife twist. Brittany. My former trainee, a recent college graduate who still asked me how to use the scanner. I felt a laugh bubble up in my throat, a bitter, hollow sound. The absurdity of it all was almost too much to bear. It wasn't just my livelihood they were attacking. It was my worth. I closed my eyes for a brief second, trying to regain control. When I opened them, I fixed my stare on Lucas. "Why?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. "Tell me the real reason. Don't insult my intelligence with corporate jargon." He finally broke his facade of indifference, a flash of malicious triumph in his eyes. "This firm requires leadership with a singular vision, Morgan, and your independence was becoming a liability." He leaned forward, his voice a condescending whisper. "Let's just say we needed to neutralize your hold on the accounts. A little streamlining, if you will." The word neutralize echoed in my head, a chilling mechanical term. It wasn't about performance. It was about power. And they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had underestimated me. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't from fear. It was a tremor of pure, unadulterated fury. Lucas's smug face blurred as I stood up the chair, scraping against the floor with a deafening screech. I didn't say another word to him. There was nothing to say. He had just revealed himself to be a pawn in a game I hadn't known I was playing. My gaze landed on Sarah, who was still avoiding eye contact, her silence now a screaming admission of guilt. The betrayal was a physical weight heavier than any demotion. I walked out of that office without so much as a glance back. Lucas's voice followed me, a casual, "We'll be in touch to finalize the new role, Morgan," that felt like spit in my face. My mind was a whirlwind of rage and questions. How long had this been in the works? How many people were in on it, and why? Sarah finally caught up to me by the elevators, her face pale. "Morgan, wait. Please, let me explain." I turned to face her, the doors of the elevator closing between us and Lucas's office. Explain what, Sarah, that you knew about this? That you sat there and watched me get dismantled while you acted like my friend? Was the promotion worth it? She flinched. It's not like that. They told me not to say anything. They threatened to do the same to me if I didn't cooperate. Lucas said you were becoming a problem, that you were too good, that you had too much power. Her voice was a pathetic whisper, but her words confirmed my worst fears. It was a power play, a strategic execution. And you believed them. My voice was cold and hard, a stark contrast to my internal inferno. You thought my expertise was a problem? Or were you just afraid you'd be next? I was terrified, Morgan. I have a family to support. I couldn't risk it. I looked at her, at the woman I had mentored, the one I had shared secrets and strategies with, and saw nothing but cowardice. You chose fear over integrity, Sarah, and you chose your paycheck over our friendship. Don't you ever speak to me again. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside, hitting the lobby button with a final decisive jab. I left her standing there, a portrait of shame and regret. Once I was in my car, parked 3 blocks away, my hands were still shaking. But a new, focused anger had replaced the chaotic rage. This was no longer just a demotion. This was a war. I pulled out my phone, and that's when I saw it. An email from Sarah. The subject line was Strategic Reorganization. My heart sank. This wasn't a personal apology. It was the forwarded email thread. She must have sent it to me by accident, an unthinking click of a button in her panicked state. The universe, it seemed, was on my side after all. I opened the email, and a thread of messages from Lucas and other senior managers appeared. The messages were clinical, callous, and absolutely damning. From Lucas Thorne to Sarah Jensen. Subject: Strategic Reorganization. The plan to neutralize the asset is in motion. We have the meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. Ensure she brings no one else. We can't risk this getting messy. Your cooperation is noted. The asset. They didn't even use my name. I was a resource to be managed, a problem to be neutralized. I scrolled further, my blood running colder with each word. From Marcus Thorne, CEO, to Lucas Thorne. Subject: Strategic Reorganization. Good. The only way to consolidate my control is to break her hold on the major accounts. She has too much influence. Make sure she knows her demotion is final. I want her gone, but on our terms. Do not let her non-compete waiver expire. He wanted me gone, but on his terms. He wanted to ensure I couldn't rebuild anywhere else. He wanted to break me. I leaned back against the headrest, a single bitter laugh escaping my lips. They had made a mistake. They thought they had neutralized me. But what they had really done was awaken a fire that had been dormant for too long. They had just given me all the evidence I needed. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. The city lights of Chicago blurred into a kaleidoscope of red and white streaks as I sped down the highway. My hand, steady now, gripped the steering wheel. The email from Sarah was a lead weight in my pocket, the cold, hard proof I needed. They had called me the asset, a dehumanizing term that crystallized their view of me, not an employee, but a resource to be exploited and then discarded. The rage was gone, replaced by a crystalline clarity and a chilling calm. They wanted to play a game. Fine. I knew this game better than any of them. I drove straight to a small coffee shop tucked away on a side street, the kind with worn-out armchairs, and the smell of roasted beans hanging heavy in the air. I didn't want to go home. I needed to act now, while my mind was sharp, and my resolve was unbreakable. Plugging my laptop into a corner outlet, I logged into my company email. This was it, the final act of defiance. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but my mind was already composing the message. It had to be perfect. No angry diatribes, no emotional pleas, just a sharp, clean cut. It had to be professional enough to stand up to any scrutiny, but with a hidden message so devastating, it would make their carefully laid plans crumble. I typed the subject line, resignation. The body of the email was simple, brief, and to the point. Subject, resignation. To Lucas Thorne. Marcus Thorne, Human Resources. Effective immediately. Please accept this email as my formal resignation from Sterling Dynamics. I wish you and the company all the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Morgan Hayes. It was so polite. It was savage. The sincerely was a dagger. It gave them nothing to fight with, no emotional lever to pull. But the real weapon was in the BCC field. My eyes scanned the list as I typed John from the Horizon Group, Emily at Atlas Solutions, David from NovaCorp. The three biggest clients on my portfolio, relationships I had built from the ground up over the past 5 years. They had trusted me, not Sterling Dynamics. I hit send. For a few moments, nothing happened. The screen just showed the sent message. But I knew the bomb had been deployed. That single, simple email was a statement. It said, "You think you control the situation, you don't. I'm not playing by your rules anymore." They would read it and see a resignation. But my clients would receive the exact same email, a silent notification that their trusted contact, the person who held all the institutional knowledge of their accounts, was suddenly, inexplicably gone. The phone buzzed. It was Lucas. I watched the screen light up with his name, a small smile playing on my lips. He had seen the email. The first ripple of the tsunami. I let it ring. He'd probably try to call me a dozen more times. Then Marcus would call. And then HR. The chaos was about to begin. They had banked on me taking the demotion quietly, on me staying on and training my replacement Brittany so they could smoothly transfer the accounts. They had underestimated how far I would go to protect my own dignity. They had planned a coup, but I had just started a war. And I was holding all the cards. My phone vibrated so intensely on the coffee shop table, it almost danced off the edge. It was Lucas's number again. The first call I had ignored, but now it was the third in less than 10 minutes. The barista glanced over at me, and I picked it up, a small, knowing smile on my lips as I silenced the ringer. The message was clear. Panic had set in. I was no longer the problem. I was the missing piece of the puzzle, and without me, their entire structure was starting to wobble. A few minutes later, the screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. A second later, a text message came through. "This is Marcus Thorne. Call me back immediately." My smile widened. The CEO himself, the man who wanted to neutralize the asset, the same man who believed my independence was a liability. The call was a symphony of desperation, and I was going to enjoy every note. I finally answered the 5th time he called. "Morgan, it's Marcus. I've been trying to reach you." "What in the hell is going on? Why did you resign like that? You know the protocol." His voice was a strained mix of anger and sheer terror, a stark contrast to his usual calm, arrogant demeanor. "Mr. Thorne," I said, my voice as level as a sheet of glass. "I believe my email was very clear. I have resigned, effective immediately." Clear as mud. I'm looking at my email right now. There's no reason, no 2-week notice, nothing. We need to talk about this. We can work something out. "I don't think so," I replied. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, savoring the bitter taste. "Our relationship, Mr. Thorne, has been irreparably damaged." A long silence stretched between us. I could hear him taking a deep, ragged breath on the other end. "Look, Morgan, I'm prepared to offer you an even better position. We can make you a senior vice president of strategic accounts with a significant pay increase and a signing bonus of, say, $150,000. It's a clean slate." We can fix this." His offer was laughable. The same man who wanted me gone was now dangling a six-figure bonus. It wasn't about me. It was about his bottom line. My resignation was already causing a ripple effect. He knew it. "Is that a different offer than the one you discussed with Lucas?" I asked, a subtle, cold accusation hidden in my tone. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. "I think you know exactly what I'm talking about," I said. "The reorganization was a demotion, a deliberate act to neutralize the asset. And I have that in writing. I'm not coming back." The phone went silent. I could hear his rapid breathing, the realization dawning on him that I knew everything. I had them. He found his voice again, though it was now a defeated whisper. "Morgan, don't do this. I've just had a call from David at Novacorp. He's pulling his contract. We're losing millions. Please, just come back and help us salvage this." I didn't need to say anything. The damage was done. My clients were loyal to me, not the company. They knew I was the one who fought for them, who went the extra mile. And my abrupt, unexplained departure sent a very clear message to them that something was terribly wrong. My resignation wasn't just a goodbye. It was a warning. "That's a shame," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I wish you the best of luck with that." I hung up. The phone went blessedly silent. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. Free from the politics, the backstabbing, the constant need to prove my worth. The house of cards they had so meticulously built to contain me was now collapsing one floor at a time. And I was standing outside watching it all burn down. It was a beautiful sight. The silence on my phone was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I closed my laptop, the screen going black, a reflection of the clean slate that lay before me. The chaos I had unleashed at Sterling Dynamics was a testament to my worth, and now the phone calls were coming from the other side. Within an hour of hanging up on Marcus Thorne, I had received 2 separate calls, both from executive recruiters I had worked with over the years, both with urgent messages about new opportunities. My reputation had preceded me, and my carefully calculated exit had been noticed by the right people. My first meeting was at a sleek minimalist downtown bar with a representative from Valorum Strategies, a well-known but somewhat stagnant competitor. His name was David, and his suit looked a size too small. He wasted no time getting to the point. "Morgan, what you did was audacious and brilliant. The news is all over the industry," he said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "We want to make you an offer. Our firm needs someone with your client relationships. We're prepared to make you a partner here, effective immediately." "A partner at Valorum?" I raised an eyebrow, a hint of disdain in my voice. "Respectfully, David, your firm's market share has been declining for 3 years. You're known for playing it safe, not for innovation. Why would I trade one sinking ship for another?" He stammered, clearly thrown off by my directness. We're turning things around. With someone like you on board, we could make a real impact. We're offering a generous compensation package." He named a figure that was a decent increase from my old salary, but nowhere near the value of what I knew I could bring. I shook my head slowly. "I appreciate the offer, David, but what I did at Sterling wasn't about a title or a bigger paycheck. It was about proving my value. And frankly, your offer doesn't reflect it." I thanked him for his time and left, not bothering to hide the fact that I was already headed for a second meeting. The next meeting was with Clara, a senior VP from Apex, a firm known for being a true disruptor in the field. She met me at a private club with a stunning view of the cityscape. She didn't pretend to be my friend, and she didn't waste my time with corporate pleasantries. "I'm not going to beat around the bush. Morgan," she began, her tone sharp and intelligent. "We know what you did, and we love it. The way you leveraged your personal capital to bring down a corrupt hierarchy, that's exactly the kind of strategic thinking we value at Apex. We don't just want to hire you. We want to make you a part of our core leadership. This was different. She saw my actions for what they were, a calculated business move, not a tantrum. What do you have in mind? I asked. We're looking to launch a new division focused on building strategic partnerships with our biggest clients. It's an area you've already mastered. We want you to lead it, head of strategic partnerships. You would report directly to the CEO with full autonomy to build your own team and set your own budget. And your compensation would be based on a generous equity package, not just a salary. You'd be building your own legacy, not just a career. Her offer was everything I had been fighting for: power, autonomy, and the chance to build something from the ground up on my own terms. It wasn't just a job. It was an empire. She wasn't buying my loyalty. She was giving me the keys to the castle. My heart, which had been a block of ice for days, started to beat with renewed purpose. My revenge against Sterling was just the beginning. The real victory would be building something so powerful and successful that my old company would be nothing more than a footnote in my story. After my meeting with Clara, the decision was easy. I called her the next morning and accepted the position as head of strategic partnerships at Apex. It felt right. This wasn't just a new job. It was a testament to my resilience. With that done, I drove back to my old office for the first time since I'd left. The thought of stepping back into that building, into the space where they had tried to break me, filled me not with dread, but with a cold sense of satisfaction. It was time to collect my things and put this chapter behind me for good. I rode the elevator up to the 12th floor, my heart rate steady. The office looked exactly as I had left it, the same fluorescent lights, the same bland corporate art. The atmosphere, however, was different. It was tense quiet. People were whispering behind their cubicles. As I walked to my old office, I saw Sarah sitting at her desk, staring at a blank screen. She looked terrible, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. "Morgan," she whispered, her voice cracking as I approached. "You came back." "Just to get my things," I said, my voice flat. I was surprised by how little emotion I felt toward her. The betrayal was real, but now it felt like a distant memory. She wasn't a friend anymore, just a sad consequence of their scheme. "I am so sorry," she said, finally meeting my eyes. Tears welled up in them. "I should have told you. I was so scared. I'm just a coward. I watched you get torn down and I did nothing." "You did exactly what they wanted you to do," I replied, a cold edge to my voice. "You chose yourself over me, Sarah. You chose to sit at the table and watch me get served up, hoping you wouldn't be next. And now you're still sitting there and they've used you? I hope it was worth it." I didn't wait for her to respond. I had nothing more to say to her. As I was packing the last of my boxes, Lucas appeared in my doorway, a sneer on his face that quickly faded when he saw my calm expression. "So, you're back. I assume you've had time to think, Morgan. Marcus is still willing to give you a chance to rectify your unprofessional behavior. We can get you set up with your old role, maybe even a modest increase if you play ball. The clients are still on the fence, but you can talk them down." I put the last of my books into a box, my movements slow and deliberate. "I have thought about it, Lucas. But I'm afraid it's too late. I've already accepted a position elsewhere." His smirk returned. "Don't be ridiculous. Do you think we'd let you just walk away and start over at a competitor? You signed a non-compete clause, remember? You're locked in for 2 years. You'll be working at the bottom for a long time if you want a career in this city." He thought he had me cornered. He thought he was playing a checkmate. I finally looked up at him, a genuine smile spreading across my face, the first one I had felt in days. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was a predator's smile. I remember every word of that contract, Lucas. And what you don't seem to know, or what Marcus failed to tell you, is that the contract contains a very specific clause. Any demotion of 3 or more levels, or a salary reduction of over 30% voids the non-compete clause, allowing me to seek employment anywhere I choose. Lucas's face went white. The blood drained from it completely. He had no response. The smirk was gone, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated shock. His entire, carefully crafted plan was just a house of cards. They had been so focused on trapping me, they didn't realize they had given me the key to my own cage. I didn't need to say anything else. I picked up my boxes, walked past him without a word, and left. The air was clearer now. The war was won, and I was free. The air in the Apex lobby smelled of fresh brewed coffee and a success I hadn't felt in years. It was the first day of my new life. The glass walls and sleek, modern furniture were a stark contrast to the dreary beige hallways of Sterling Dynamics. I wasn't an asset here. I was the head of strategic partnerships, a title that felt as exhilarating as it sounded. I was building something from the ground up on my own terms, with my own vision. I had left a crumbling empire behind, and now I stood at the gates of a new one. Clara, my new boss, met me at the elevator bank, a genuine smile on her face. "Morgan, welcome. We've been looking forward to this day. There's a palpable energy here that's been building since we heard you were coming on board." "Thank you, Clara. The feeling is mutual," I said, a sense of quiet triumph swelling in my chest. "I'm ready to get started." She led me to my new office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. The view was breathtaking, a panorama of skyscrapers that reminded me of my own meteoric climb. "We wanted you to have a view that matches your potential," she said, gesturing to the expanse of the city below. "We see you as an architect here, not just an employee." Inside, my team was already waiting. It was a small but highly skilled group. Unlike the hushed, fear-filled halls of my old company, this team was buzzing with energy and ideas. One of them, a bright-eyed young analyst named Jake, stepped forward. "Ms. Hayes, it's an honor to work with you. We've all followed your work for years. Everyone's been talking about the shakeup at Sterling." Another team member, a seasoned strategist named Leo, nodded. "The industry chatter is insane. They're saying you single-handedly wiped out a quarter of their Q4 revenue." Clara leaned against my new desk, a confident smirk on her face. "It's even better than that. We just had a call from the CEO of the Horizon Group. He said he was so infuriated by Sterling's reorganization and their blatant disrespect for your contributions that he's not just pulling his business, he's actively advising other firms to do the same." "And the others?" I asked, a mix of satisfaction and professional curiosity. "Atlas Solutions pulled their multi-million-dollar contract this morning," Clara said. "Their head of accounts personally called to inform them, saying, 'Our business goes where Morgan Hayes goes.' And Novacorp, you already know about them. They're furious. They considered you an extension of their own team. They see this as a complete failure of leadership on Sterling's part." I let the information sink in. This wasn't just a win. It was an absolute rout. They had underestimated me, and in doing so, they had exposed their own fragility. "I'm here to build, not to look back," I said, turning my focus to my new team. "Wow, what's our first order of business?" The conversations that followed were like a breath of fresh air. They treated me as an equal, a respected professional whose expertise was a valued commodity. There was no politicking, no whispering about power grabs. It was all about strategy, growth, and results. I was in my element, and for the first time since my demotion, I felt completely in control of my own destiny. Later that afternoon, I sat alone in my new office, the city lights beginning to flicker on below. My phone, which had been in my bag all day, buzzed with a notification. It was a text from Sarah. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it, They fired Brittany today. The CEO is in a complete panic. He wants to know if you can meet with him. He said you're the only one who can fix this. Please, Morgan. My hand, steady and firm, deleted the message without a response. They had wanted me to be gone, but on their terms. Now I was gone, and it was on my terms. They had built a machine to crush me, but they didn't realize that in doing so, they had forged me into a weapon. They didn't just fire me. They set me free, and I had used that freedom to detonate their entire corporate structure. They had wanted to neutralize the asset. They had failed. I was more than an asset. I was a force. And now, I was an unstoppable one. The first few weeks at Apex were a whirlwind of focused energy and pure, unadulterated success. My team and I moved at a pace I hadn't experienced in years, unburdened by the layers of corporate bureaucracy and backstabbing that had stifled me at Sterling. We didn't just meet our new clients, we wowed them. My first major project was a pitch to a global tech company called Quantum Innovations, a potential client that had been on Apex's wish list for years. The meeting was a symphony of perfectly timed slides, brilliant ideas, and a synergy between my team and me that felt almost telepathic. As I stood at the front of the conference room pitching my strategy to their senior leadership, I felt an exhilarating rush. Our analysis shows a 45% potential market share increase within 2 years by shifting your focus to strategic partnerships. We're not just offering a service, we're offering a blueprint for market dominance. My voice was strong and confident, a stark contrast to the small, shaky voice I had used when confronting Lucas. The Quantum Innovations CEO, a man named Mr. Thompson, looked at me with an intensity that said he was captivated. After we closed the deal, a multi-million-dollar contract that had the entire Apex office cheering, Clara walked into my office. "You see that?" she said, gesturing to the city lights below. "That's what happens when you let talent do its job. Lucas and Marcus were fools to let you go. Thompson just called me raving about your presentation. He said he's never seen anything like it. He's already talking about our next venture." I just smiled. It wasn't just about the win, it was about the respect. At Apex, my expertise was a celebrated asset, not a liability to be neutralized. I was building my legacy, not just trying to survive. I was a professional, respected, and successful woman, and for the first time in a long time, I was truly proud of myself. One Friday afternoon, I left the office early. My calendar was clear, and for the first time in what felt like a decade, I didn't feel a pang of anxiety leaving before 6 p.m. The reason was simple. My son Leo had a school play. For the last 5 years, I had missed every single one. My dedication to Sterling meant missing out on these small, irreplaceable moments. I had missed his first-grade musical, his second-grade poetry recital, and his third-grade art show. But not anymore. This was my new promise to myself. As I took my seat in the packed auditorium, a familiar-looking woman with tired eyes sat down next to me. She was dressed in a sharp suit, and she was checking her phone every 10 seconds. She sighed, noticing my gaze. My first day of not working on a Friday in a year. I'm here for my daughter. I just hope my boss doesn't call. I know the feeling, I said, a soft smile on my face. I'm here for my son. I missed his last few performances. It's a new chapter. The relief that washed over her face was a familiar one. It was the same relief I felt when I walked out of Sterling for the last time. It was the joy of a life reclaimed. Leo spotted me from the stage. He was dressed as a little astronaut, and he gave me a huge, beaming smile, a light of pure joy that made my heart ache and swell at the same time. He delivered his lines with a passion that made me feel so incredibly proud. I was there in the moment, fully present, not checking my phone or worrying about a call from a client. That was the real victory. It was the moment I realized that their betrayal, while painful, had freed me to build a life where professional success and personal fulfillment weren't at odds. After the play, as I waited for Leo, my phone buzzed. The notification was from Sarah. I almost ignored it, but something told me this was different. I opened the text message, and the words that appeared were a long, raw confession. "Morgan, it's Sarah. I don't know why I'm texting you, but I can't stop thinking about what I did. I saw you today on the news standing outside the Apex building with Clara. You looked so happy, so free. We were all called into a meeting this morning. The company is in a full-blown crisis. They're talking about massive layoffs. Lucas is in a complete panic, and Marcus is screaming at everyone in sight. I should have stood by you. I was a coward. I was so afraid of them, and now I'm paying for it. Lucas and Marcus are blaming everyone but themselves. They say you're a monster, that you orchestrated all of this to take down the firm. But I know the truth. You just stood up for yourself. You walked away with your dignity intact, and you're soaring. I am so sorry. For everything." I read the message again, letting her words sink in. There was no triumph, no desire to gloat, just a quiet sense of closure. She wasn't an enemy anymore, just a person who made a choice and was now living with the consequences. Her confession was the final piece of the puzzle, confirming that my actions were not an act of revenge, but an act of self-preservation. My revenge had been a byproduct, a sweet accident of my own success. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence was the most powerful answer. Just then, Leo ran up to me, his astronaut helmet askew. "Mom, you came. You didn't miss it." His hug was all the validation I needed. My success wasn't measured in revenue or stock prices, but in the smile of a little boy who finally had his mom back. The future was bright, and it was entirely my own. Just then, Leo ran up to me, his astronaut helmet askew. "Mom, you came. You didn't miss it." His hug was all the validation I needed. My success wasn't measured in revenue or stock prices, but in the smile of a little boy who finally had his mom back. The future was bright, and it was entirely my own. For the next few months, my new life at Apex was a tapestry woven with threads of success, fulfillment, and a deep-seated peace. My division grew at a staggering rate, pulling in new clients and talent that had once been intimidated by sterling dynamics. The industry whispered my name not with malice, but with a new reverent respect. The corporate demotion was no longer a stain on my resume. It was a badge of honor, a story of a woman who was too valuable to be contained. The crescendo of my journey came not in a quiet office, but at the annual Global Strategy Summit in New York City. It was the premier event of the year, a convergence of the most powerful minds in our field. Apex had a featured booth, a massive glass-walled testament to our rising power, and I was scheduled to deliver a keynote speech. As I walked through the convention hall, a sense of quiet power settled over me. I was no longer a ghost in the corporate machine. I was a key player. I saw familiar faces from my past former colleagues who now looked at me with a mix of awe and regret. I nodded politely but kept my focus on the future. And then I saw them. Lucas and Marcus Thorne stood near their own booth, which was a noticeably smaller, more somber affair than Apex's. They were huddled together, looking anxious and defeated. Marcus's face was etched with stress lines, and Lucas's confident smirk was completely gone, replaced by a sullen scowl. They were no longer the powerful men who had controlled my fate. They were two men trying to salvage a sinking ship. Lucas saw me first. His eyes widened slightly in surprise, then narrowed in a flicker of anger and defiance. He nudged Marcus, and they both started walking toward me. I stopped, my back straight, a serene calm settling over me. This was the moment. The final confrontation. Morgan. Marcus set his voice a low growl. What are you doing here? You have a lot of nerve showing your face after what you did to our firm. I looked at him not with anger, but with an almost pitying expression. I'm here to speak, Mr. Thorne. My company is a key sponsor, and what I did to your firm was simply to resign. Resign? Lucas cut in his voice, rising in indignation. You didn't just resign. You orchestrated a deliberate malicious campaign to steal our clients. David at NovaCorp sent us a copy of your email. You BCC'd all of them. You sabotaged us. A crowd was beginning to gather, drawn by the rising tension in their voices. This was exactly what I wanted. A public reckoning. Sabotage. I asked, my voice as calm as a summer lake. No, Lucas. I sent a professional resignation email, as is my right. The fact that my most valued clients chose to follow me says more about your firm's failures than my actions. They had loyalty to me, not to a company that was willing to discard its most valuable asset. You violated your non-compete clause? Marcus spat out a desperate final attack. We're going to sue you for everything you've got. I laughed, a soft, pleasant sound that echoed in the tense silence. Really? You're going to sue me on what grounds? For exposing the fact that your own contract contains a clause that voids the non-compete if I am demoted 3 levels or have my salary cut by more than 30%, which, as I recall, you did. You reduced my salary by 40%. Did you really think I didn't read the fine print of the contract I helped write? Lucas's face went white again, a familiar expression I had come to enjoy. The air was thick with the sound of gasps and whispers from the onlookers. They had been so consumed by their own arrogance, their own lust for power, that they had overlooked the very tool that would bring them down. You knew all along, Lucas whispered, his voice full of disbelief. Of course I knew, I replied, a cool smile on my lips. I've always been good at my job, Lucas. You and Marcus made a classic mistake. You were so busy fighting over who would control the chessboard, you forgot that I was the one who knew how to play the game. This is not over, Morgan. Marcus said, his fists clenched, but the threat was hollow. He looked around at the faces watching him, the whispers and the pitying glances. He was a defeated man. Oh, it's very much over, Mr. Thorne, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper for his ears only. You called me the asset, a thing to be neutralized. But you were wrong. I was never an asset. I was the foundation. And when you ripped me out, your whole building came crashing down. And now, I'm at Apex building an even stronger one right across the street. I didn't wait for a response. I just turned and walked away, not a single glance back. I walked to the stage, the crowd parting before me. As I stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces of colleagues, competitors, and potential partners, I felt the most profound sense of accomplishment. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about proving to the world, and more importantly to myself, that my worth was not defined by their approval. It was defined by my own power, my own integrity, and my own victory. The weeks that followed the Global Strategy Summit were a blur of press interviews, client meetings, and internal celebrations at Apex. The story of what transpired at Sterling Dynamics had gone viral within the industry, and my keynote speech had cemented my reputation as a powerful, uncompromising force. Apex was the new darling of the business world, and I was its rising star. My name was in every trade journal, on every business podcast. I had gone from a quiet victim of corporate politics to a headline-making professional visionary. The downfall of Sterling Dynamics was a slow, painful spectacle that I watched from a distance with a detached, almost academic interest. News reports detailed the mass exodus of talent and the ongoing financial crisis. Their stock price, once a source of pride for Marcus Thorne, had plummeted. The company's name, once a symbol of stability, became a punchline. I heard whispers that Marcus was being forced to sell off assets to stay afloat, and Lucas was scrambling for a new job, his name now toxic in the industry. They had won the battle for control, but they had lost the entire war. The victory was far more satisfying than I had ever imagined. It was not just about my success. It was about the justice of seeing them face the consequences of their own greed. But the real reward wasn't the public victory. It was the quiet joy I found in my new life. At Apex, I had built a team that was not just talented, but loyal. We worked late, not out of fear, but out of passion. I was no longer a cog in a giant machine. I was the engine. My days were filled with meaningful work, building something truly innovative with people I respected and trusted. My nights were even better. I made it a point to be home for dinner every night. I helped Leo with his homework, listening to him chatter about his day at school. We would read books together, and I would tuck him into bed, a comfort I hadn't been able to give him consistently in years. One evening, as I read him a story, he looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes. "Mom, you seem happier now," he said. "I am, sweetie," I replied, a lump forming in my throat. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He didn't need to know about the betrayals, the anger, or the professional battles. All he needed to know was that his mom was home and she was happy. That was my true victory. A few months later, I was in my Apex office working on a major deal. A final, unlisted phone number popped up on my screen. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Morgan, it's Lucas," the voice on the other end said, filled with a desperate, hollow exhaustion. We're done. The firm is being acquired by a private equity group. They're liquidating all our assets. I'm unemployed. Marcus has been forced out completely. He's in a bad place." There was a long silence. He was waiting for me to gloat, to unleash one last verbal assault. But I had nothing left to say to him. The anger was gone. "I'm sorry to hear that, Lucas," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I truly am." "How can you be sorry?" he asked, his voice cracking. "After everything you did to us, you destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything, Lucas," I said. "You and Marcus did. You took a thriving company and turned it into a toxic environment. You chose to betray the people who were your greatest strength. And I didn't destroy your lives. I just showed you what a life looks like without me in it. Your collapse was never my mission. My mission was to rebuild my own life. And I have." I hung up the phone and looked out at the magnificent Chicago skyline. The city lights sparkled like a million tiny diamonds, each one a testament to someone's dream. My dream had been simple: to be valued for my work, to be respected for my integrity, and to be free from a system that sought to control me. I had accomplished all of that. My journey was not a tale of revenge, but of redemption. It was a story of a woman who was pushed to her limit, and instead of breaking, found the strength to soar. I had left behind the shadows of my past and stepped into a new dawn, a legacy built not on the ruins of my enemies, but on the strength of my own will. I was not just Morgan Hayes, the wronged employee. I was Morgan Hayes, the head of strategic partnerships, a mother, a mentor, and a survivor. My name was no longer a symbol of betrayal, but a beacon of triumph. And the best part was this was just the beginning. Based on Morgan Hayes' story, here's some advice for the audience in plain everyday American English. Morgan Hayes' story is a great reminder that life can throw some real curveballs, but you never have to let them knock you down for good. She was treated unfairly and betrayed, but instead of drowning in anger, she used her confidence and smarts to turn a crisis into a comeback. In the end, Her biggest win wasn't just getting back at the people who wronged her, it was finding a life that was truly meaningful. A job she loved, a real relationship with her son, and the kind of happiness money can't buy. Her story shows us that your self-worth isn't defined by a job title or a paycheck. It's defined by how you handle the tough stuff. Stay strong, trust your gut, and you'll find your way to a life that's not just successful, but genuinely happy. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to Morgan Hayes' inspiring story. We hope her journey gives you the strength to always believe in yourself and overcome any challenge life throws your way. If this story resonated with you, please feel free to like this video and leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories.